well, you heard Steve Watts and I started this initiative of doing an Our Giants Are Female, and I like to try to find someone who has to do with our community. So I don't know if you knew this, but Duiluan Tilly is of the NI Board of Directors since 2002. She retired from Texas Instruments. She's a senior fellow in 2002, and she's the only woman in Texas Instruments history elected to this highest fellow rank. Like, one would hope that there will already be more, but she has 24 patents. She has a lot more things, more accolades, but it's someone to go look up. All right, so I'm putting this as an introduction to DQMH. It's really going to be more of an informal talk, and feel free to ask questions, interrupt me. You know, we can go in different directions with this. Who's Delacor? We help customers develop successful applications with LabVIEW and develop custom measurement hardware. We specialize in working with teams to implement LabVIEW best practices. I work a lot with the transition from going from lone wolf to all of a sudden having a team, and a lot of very experienced developers that are amazed on why the things that they thought were obvious are not obvious when they hire new people. And so I help them figure that out, that transition. We have been individually recognized by National Instruments as key technology experts, and we have customers all over the world, which has been really great during this time, by the way. So we help with software engineering process optimization, best practices training, software architectural design, hardware design consulting. The products that we have is the DQMH that won on 2016 Product of the Year. We have a lock-in amplifier for my Rio. It's more of an educational thing. And then the Delacor test sequencer, the configuration manager, and the software engineering tools are tools that we sell directly to our customers. We don't have them in the tools network because they involve a lot of customization for each customer. So it kind of didn't really make sense to put them in the tools network. We have a program called the DQMH Trusted Advisors. And this is a way, you know, a lot of people ask me, why don't you have a larger company? And we were pretty small. We have like 3 software engineers, 2 hardware engineers. And when we have bigger projects, we do hire other contractors. And my answer to that is, I think I have the mental ability to have a larger business, but I don't have the mental health, or rather I have the mental health and I want to preserve it. I really like to continue to get my hands dirty. I really like to have architectural discussions and be more on the technical end. And some of these companies, they're more focused on, they do want to grow. And I figured that this was a better way of continue to focus on improving DQMH and supporting them with the tools that they need. And all of them have demonstrated that they are very good. They have a very good understanding with DQMH. And not only that, they can now also tell you if DQMH is the best solution for your project. Like you said, you mentioned Sam. Sam can tell you if you should be going with Actor Framework or DQMH, for example. They are wiring softwares in Australia. Wobble Lab is in France. Handful Software Engineering is in Germany. Studio Bots is in Canada. SAS Workshops, which is SAMS, is in Colorado, and then Neosoft is also in Canada. So that also gives, and it also helps when, you know, customer comes in and says, oh, you're putting me on this DQMH thing. What happens? And I don't know why they always say this. What happens when you get run over by a bus? Why don't they say what happens when you win the lottery, right? There's other companies that can support you. It's not only us. So they're audited by us, they follow best practices, they have a deep understanding of DQMH, know when DQMH is the best tool. They have at least 1 CLA or CLA level person, and all the LabVIEW programmers have the DQMH framework badge. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the badges from NI, but there's one on the area of frameworks, there's 2 badges, one for Actor Framework and one for DQMH. DSH workshops, and it might be something else that you've heard about us, is it stands for Delacor, SSDC, and Handful Software Engineering. Those are the companies of the founders. And Brian Powell joined us early in 2020. We were going to start doing more workshops, and then COVID hit. So, so instead we did BI Week. And the interesting thing about working with these guys is we agree on the fundamentals of software engineering, but our implementations are very different. And it's very interesting to have the discussions about what is the important part and the foundational concept, and then why we choose different approaches. So anyway, all right, so let me check back. How many responses? Is still only 6 responses. Let me refresh. So for those who just joined us, I'm putting on the chat the link for the poll. Is really quick. It's only 2 questions. It's just going to help me know kind of how to target this thing. It doesn't want to refresh. Okay, let me open it again. Responses. 6 responses still. Okay, so I guess people are shy. All right, so I don't see any. I've heard of it, but I really don't use it. Is anybody in the room not familiar or not heard about DQMH at all? Anybody? No? Okay, all right, so I'm gonna assume that, okay, so what is DQMH? It stands for Delacor Queued Message Handler. We made it. It was a hard decision because it's like, why do you want to do yet another framework, right? There were at the time, and this is something that Olivier Jordan reminded me on the CLI Summit in France in 2013. I was presenting what were the original ideas, the seminal ideas for DQMH, a queue in a class, using user events for communication between modules. And at the same time, on the same conference, James Powell was presenting what became the Messenger library. And at the same conference, Stephen Loftus-Mercer was talking about Actor Framework. So those 3 came about around the same times. And we were already using user events, and there were another frameworks, at least public frameworks, that were using user events. I know that other people like Huga had been using user events for a while, and have talked about it in Lava and other places, but there was no public framework that used them. We wanted something that was accessible to CLDs, but you could also have people with low levels of proficiency helping on the projects. We used NI QMH because we wanted to show that we could take an existing architecture and automate it and make it easier to use with a team. Remember, I told you that transition between the lone wolf to working on a team. And that's where that came from. And originally it was just a marketing thing. It's like, let me show you this. So when I am trying to sell you that I can automate your framework, I can give you an example. It turned out into forget about my framework or forget about the architecture I'm using. Let me just use DQMH. We focus a lot on the developer experience. And, I've said this several times. People say they smile when they use DQMH. And that's the best compliment that you can give me, because that was what we wanted to do. We wanted it to be a pleasure to work with and not, oh my gosh, what are you doing, DQMH, right? It uses object-oriented programming, but does not require understanding it. Works with Teston. It comes with an API tester. The API tester comes from working at 3 in the morning on projects and having things not working, and being able to isolate the modules and testing them on their own to figure out where the problem is super useful. So that's where that came from. All right, so it is free. It's available on the Tools Network. And then how to learn. There's tons of stuff. There's videos on the website, on the documentation. We added now. Let me show you that. We added now how to learn. So if you go to Delacor and look for the DQMH documentation, there is a section on how to learn DQMH. And for everything, you need to know what a queue is, what producer consumer is, and what the NI Queue Message Handler is. And the NI QMH, what I mean by that is when you go to the getting started and you say create a project, the option you have is a queue message handler. So here, queue message handler, this is what I mean by the NI QMH. So be familiar with that and understand user events, which should really be called dynamic events. They're the worst name feature in LabVIEW. And then there are four different paths. One is if you're the type of person that can learn with generic terms, then you can use the generic project template. If you need to actually see something that looks like something you're familiar with, like a data acquisition system, then use the sample project, which is the continuous measurement and logging example. If you're just going to be a consumer, you're going to be using DQMH modules that somebody else created, then you go for learning path 3. If you want to use DQMH and test them, then you go for learning part 4. There's also instructor-led online classes, on-site classes, and there are all videos, and there's also Tom has a tutorial series, and he speaks at a decent pace, not like me. All the videos that you go, if you go watch my videos, I suggest you go on the lower section on YouTube and slow down the speed if you're having trouble following me. That works out well. All right, so where were we? I already did that. No, I didn't want to click on that. Okay, what is DQMH? All right, and so that's there's a batch. The batch, it's intended as an open book test. So, and we help NI to make the questions, and we made it in a way that it would encourage you to install the toolkit and try something. So some of the questions you're not going to be able to answer unless you actually go and try to run them. And the book that originally, if COVID wasn't, I would have been there. We would have been having fajitas, and I would have be signing books and brought the book for you to see. This is the most difficult thing that I've ever done in my professional career. It was so super hard. So, but anyway. There is an actor framework and a DQMH section on the frameworks. There's a whole chapter on that. All right. So there were some, before NI removed the reviews, we had all 5-star reviews. We had 24. I think we were the toolkit that had the most reviews, but because anybody else didn't have them, they removed the reviews, which made me really upset, because we really had good ones. I need to work, you were talking about working on your website. I need to work on the website to have the rating in there so people can see what cool things. So why would you use DQMH? Multiple tasks occurring in parallel, often at different rates. Need multiple instances of the same front panel. If you want to separate the user interface from the rest of the code, so for example, inserting a sub-panel, it can be a standalone application, or if you're dealing with different levels of proficiency, where I've seen in larger companies, DQMH works really well, is that you can train all the LabVIEW developers on using it. And then the code that the R&D folks are doing while they're doing their research can be massaged a little bit, and it's the same code that then is used in the MB, and it is the same code that then is used in manufacturing. Contrary to what normally happens, which is R&D has a collection of VIs that you cannot find tops or bottoms to it. You can just go and extract some protocols and stuff, but then most of the code is useless, and you have to recreate at each one of those phases. So this is an area where DQMH really helps. All right, so I'm going to do a demo. I didn't want to bore you with a slide hell. I think I already did enough of that. I have on 2019, I have version 4.2 of DQMH, and on 2020, I have the 5.0, which is what we just recently released. The only reason I did that is so I can have the two projects open and show you why we did a major refactoring of DQMH on 5.0. So let me see. This one is LabVIEW 2009. And this is called Andrea's test. Well, before I run Andrea's test and before I go, all right, any questions? Is everybody enjoying their lunch? The virtual fajitas? No questions? Comments? No?
Not that I see.
All right. Okay. So normally when you create a DQMH module, you get a library and an API tester. The library has basically the brains of the VI. This is something that you get out of the box when you create a module. It comes like this. It already has a lot of code in it. There's a producer consumer Queued Message Handler in it, and it also comes with a series of public API methods that you can use to communicate with the module. And those are the requests. So in this case, I just have the ones that come out of the box: show panel, hide panel, stop module, show diagram. And there are a series of broadcasts. Module didn't need, status updated, error reported. So how do I use the tester? Well, the tester, I can use it to run a new instance, show its module panel. I can go into its block diagram, which is something that is very useful when you're working on clonables, because let me see, let me go here. Panel, like I just can put a, because when you have multiple instances of the same BI, if you wanted to just go check the block diagram of only one of them, you can do it with the API tester. So when I see that, I can go and check, you know, that. But if I want to see what happened on another module, I can show the block diagram for that module. So that's a very general, high-level description of what a DQMH module is. Andrea's test is, Andrea's in Germany. He discovered that we had a root loop issue, or his test made it easier. We had heard some architects that were saying, oh, you know, yeah, DQMH is great, but we don't like the fact that when you start the modules, you use the wrong BI server. And the reason they didn't like it is because look what happens when I act on a menu. The iteration stopped running, right? And the code is super simple. The code, what we're doing, and let me, so I am starting my modules and then stopping. This is just a dummy module. And then I have, I'm starting as fast as I can modules and stopping them. But the start module on 4.2 was using this method. Where is it? This run BI from the BI server method. This is what we were using in 4.2. This is something that can be interrupted by the root loop. It's run by the root loop, so it can be interrupted by anything else that is high priority in LabVIEW. Don't ask me why, but NI decided that the menu interaction is a root loop interaction, so that can interrupt it. Okay. All right. So we said nobody had found these in the wild. Nobody had issues with it. But once we realized it was there, we were like, we need to fix it. Because imagine you're doing a test system and the operator gets a phone call and then steps away, leaving the menu like that, and now nothing is running, right? Because they did that. So what we did in 5.0, not the test menu, Andrea's test. Andrea's test. It's the same code. I noticed I no longer have to have a minion, a dummy. That was for solving a different issue, but I no longer have to have a dummy clone. And I can go as fast as I want and it totally doesn't matter if I do that or not. Okay, so how did we achieve that? We're basically doing the same thing that Actor Framework does. If you go and look at the launch actor, you will see that. Of course, things got a little bit more complicated, but we're no longer using the run BI server method. We are using the start asynchronous call. And one thing we're doing is we are keeping the first reference open, and we leave it open. So these leads to another difference between 4.2 and 5.0. When you run the tester on 4.2 and you start running new instances, you get the clone ID. So from 4.1.4 to all the way to 5, when I stop and I run again, or if I stop all the modules and run again, I always start from the same number. In 5.0, now we use incremental digits, and if I stop them all and start again, it keeps incrementing. But the modules are stopped. Like if I stop them all, you don't see the library being blocked, right? So they have stopped, but the numbers keep increasing, and that is just we're leaking the original reference. Now, Actor Framework doesn't give you this opportunity, but we were like, it kind of feels weird to have a leak reference, and there may be people that don't want to have that for whatever reason. So one other thing that we added on 5.0 is that we allowed you to decide not to leak that reference. However, if you don't leak the reference, then you get the root loop issue. So so right now the default is false. If you set these to true, and we have all of that is documented here. It explains why, so you can go and read it in more detail. But if we do that, the test minion, when I run it, starts 1, 2, 3, 4. I stop them, and then it starts again 1, 2, 3, 4. But Andrea's test now gets interrupted by the root loop. Okay, so it's all about giving you the options, but also giving the default option is the one that doesn't hang you. But we give you the option to, if you decide for whatever reason that we might not have known ahead that you don't want to do it that way, we make sure that that we give you that option. All right, questions?
So you can still have the root loop issue on the very first run, right?
Yes, yes. And but all you do is you make sure you launch that very first clone ID while you're on the splash screen, for example.
Yeah.
There's no many, like basically launch it before you show any GUIs, and then you're good. Does that make sense, Tom?
Yes.
Yeah. So yeah, there's still that. Let me go back and remove that.
Does the leaked reference show up as an issue when using test stand? Does it show as an unclosed reference?
No.
Okay.
I don't think so. I would have to test it with test stand. I know that if you use it in the desktop execution trace toolkit, you would see it as an unclosed reference, but you would see that also with Actor Framework. So, and again, if that becomes an issue, you could just change that constant that I show you. Just know that you're susceptible to root loop issues.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions? So I can go to Becky's question she had earlier. No? So what was your question, Becky?
Well, there was the request, and so there's the request and wait for reply, obviously, that's scripted in there. And then I think it's on the website or whatnot, but we've been moving away on some of the DQMH projects I have from the request and wait for reply to a request and wait for broadcast. Because we don't want anything else locked up. We want the caller to wait, but we don't want the module to wait.
Yeah. There's different ways of doing that. The reason the request and wait for reply was created is for things that you really want things to be locked.
Yeah.
the typical example that I give is one of my customers works with radioactive material. The initialization of certain sections of his control and login system need to happen perfectly before you go on doing anything else, because you could end up with a radioactive cleanup. So that's the type of stuff that it's like, okay, I'm gonna wait here until you tell me that I am connected and that everything is fine, and I'm totally fine with everything else waiting. So that's what we were thinking on request and wait for reply. If if you can afford, or you don't want to have blocking things, you definitely go to the asynchronous, and there are different ways of doing that. Let me see. Let me go to 5.0. Let's try it with this guy.
Yeah, there's not like a nice scripting going. That's the bummer. It's like you have to create the request, and then we've kind of got a thing we do in place. But I was just curious, like what you recommend. I'm
going to show you. One thing is you can do a feature request on the DQMH forums, the DQMH, the Delacor toolkits on the forums. We have now DQMH feature requests. And it's basically an ID exchange. So you could go and place your idea there, and if it gets enough kudos, or if you can bribe one of the DQMH trusted advisors to burn their, because we make a major release and then the smaller release is whatever they request. So if you can bribe them into using their request for your feature, you can do it there, right? So let's see. So you want to do.
I guess the question too is to others. Do others find that valuable? I'm just curious. Maybe it's just us for what we're doing, but basically, like Fab said, right now request and wait for response is locking, which sometimes is necessary, but other times the caller you want to be locked or waiting for a response. But and like we have a timeout too, so it's like request and wait for broadcast with timeout.
So what we do is you could do. I'm trying to think the best way to do it, because there's different ways of doing it. One is you could on a request. So right now we don't have a request here. Let's create one. So let's do test Delacor DQMH, create new DQMH event. What do you have in mind, Becky? What do we want to do? Change from panel color, or?
I don't know. Tell it to generate a random number, and then we can have it maybe take too long.
Okay. Okay, so request. So we have the option of a request, a broadcast, request and wait for reply, which is the one that logs. And then there's the round trip. What the round trip does, it creates all three options at once.
Yeah.
And that's very handy, David. If you're using test end, it is very handy to do it this way, because you can have the blocking call on test end and still be able to use your API tester as a debugger and find out what test end is requesting, because the broadcast would be notifying you about that. So we're just going to do, in this case, we're going to do, well, let's do the road trip so we have everything. Okay, so specify the name of the event, generate random number. My suggestion is that requests are named on the imperative form, and then broadcast are named past tense or passive voice. So random number generated. Okay, that helps you with also visualizing when things happen. Request module to generate random.
I think you know English better than me, but that makes sense.
Request module to generate a random number and broadcast the result. Okay. So if you wanted, you could have arguments on your
like a factor or something,
request. And then on the broadcast, we know that what we want back is the numeric indicator. One thing
on the request, why don't you put like a min and max? You can use the new random number that lets you do that. That way people can see both.
Okay, so
so just the numeric control.
Yeah. So one thing I wanted to show is, other people, after they saw that we were doing the scripting, they included scripting in their frameworks, and they said, oh, we actually make it look like a running BI, not that awful thing that DQMH does. Well, the reason we leave it as an actual BI is so you can use quick draw. So I can do a numeric control and do that. And that's useful when you have type defs or clusters that are already on your project.
People were mad that it looked like it wasn't running?
Yeah.
Oh, I always like it this way, but okay. I guess I never tried because I always use quick drop. So
Yeah, it is for it is, and we did it because of quick drop. All right, so min max, and then this one is gonna be the indicator, and this is gonna be result. One thing that we also did add as I think in DQMH 3, anything that you put as your properties here. So for example, if you change the display format to, I don't know, scientific SI notation. Okay, so if I put here, okay, it actually leaves it with the K. If you put things here on your controls, it is respected when the VIs are generated. So if you want to have any specific stuff that you like to have, let's say we want to change also this one to SI notation, and that we want the max to be the default to be 1K, and that be 0. That should be respected. All right. So I'm going to create it. Okay, one of the things that happens with the scripting is the API tester is the first thing that comes to your face, in your face. This is, one of my customers says that DQMH feels like they package me and have me on their shoulders telling them what to do. We haven't figured out how to program my Mexican accent in there telling you, you need to be doing this. But the closest thing that we got to that was having the API tester showing on your face. Is like, how do you plan to test this once you implement it? So they generate the random number. We have the button here. It already configured to that. I have to wire the module ID, and then I can create the min and the max. Okay. And then we have, because we created the top 3 things, we have here whether we want to wait for reply or not. So by default, it does wait for a reply. Okay. And then the response comes in a, let's just create an indicator. Okay, this is something, there is already a request to do this where they are asking us to replace this, but I just wanted to show that it kept the SI notation. There is already a request. People want us to do this. So you don't have to do the unbundle when you come out. So there's a request for that, a feature request for that. If you like that, go vote for it. Okay, Control E.
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, I just wanted to say personally, in the architecture that we have, we just have that error bundled into that, you know, what's coming out of that node, so that we don't unbundle the.
Yeah, it does that. That's why everybody's like, so why are you giving it to me if you're already merging it here?
Okay.
So we already do that. It seems like we're missing this extra step of really, you don't need to give me the error, just merge it like you're doing and just give me the result, which is really what I care about. All right. Okay, so we have our mean. Notice that it kept the 1K there as a default. So that helps you with the thing, and then you have your generate random number. Okay, so that is, how do you plan to test this? How do you plan to test that this worked? Okay, so this is how I'm going to test it. And then now we can go implement the code. So on the code, we have it did the whole bundling for me. It did the Enqueue. Oh, I forgot about these guys. I'm sorry. Normally you wouldn't have to worry about this. We added a new function here, and I was so where you can create a custom Enqueue, because some people needed a custom Enqueue, and it remembers what you used last time. I should have used the standard Enqueue. So that's why it's using that. So normally you wouldn't have to do what I'm gonna do now, but Sorry, I forgot about that. Becky, you're not keeping me honest.
No, I didn't know that was there, so that's actually good because it showed that that feature's there, and I like that it holds your last.
Yeah, because normally you're gonna be generating code for using your framework, not ours, right? Or your customizations. And that brings to another important thing, which is, you know, some people don't like some of the stuff of DQMH, but don't like other things. Like, for example, they would want this to be an object. You can create your own templates and you can customize it. And you can create your own queue, and you can create your own class for the queue and inherit from that. So anyway, all right, so now we're gonna deal with the thing here. So we have our min and max. Where is that random thingy?
It's just random number range. There it is, yep.
Okay. So upper bound, lower bound, I don't care about that. And then the number is the result. There's no error. So for now, we're just gonna remove that. Okay. So this is the regular operation, and then we're gonna put right now just a small wait. Create constant. And we're only gonna wait if we said that we were waiting, right? And look that it generated the broadcast for us as well. So on the block diagram here, on the broadcast, I'm gonna put the result that actually comes from a broadcast. All right, so let's see, run new module instance, and then generate random number. Both of them get the same stuff. If I don't wait for the reply, this one doesn't return anything, and I'm getting it only from the broadcast. Everybody understands what we just did?
No, no.
No? Okay. Who did I lose? Steven?
No,
Yes?
okay. I'm okay.
You're okay? Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay, because I can try to explain it differently. All right, so it is returning the broadcast. So what Becky was saying is, if I make these wait longer, we are gonna have a problem where any other requests are gonna be blocked by, oh, I'm not running anything. Run a new instance, generate random number. Wait for reply. It's not really waiting 4 seconds, is it?
It doesn't seem that way.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It is. Okay. 1, 1,000. No. 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, 3, 1,000, 4. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, so I should probably be using the wait, the beam wait. So it really. No, what it's called data flow delay. What is the name of it? I forgot.
All, I think.
Stall data flow. Okay. And now we will do it every time because it's really depending. It was depending on when this part of the code was being hit. Okay, there we go. All right. Run new instance, generate a random number. 1, 2, 3, 4. There. And now it's doing it every time. Okay, so you were saying, okay, this is great, but we really don't want that because that would be blocking things. So we just want whoever is calling to be blocked, but others to still be able to send information to the module. Okay. There are different ways you can do that. You could be sending a notifier. I'm trying to think.
Because what we've done, and maybe this is the right or wrong way, that's why I was curious, is we basically we create a new, so go back to the project. And that's, I said, this is probably not the best way, but in the public API, we create a new thing called, that would be like basically to generate random number. It'd have a different name, but what we do is put the generate random number request in there, and then we register for that broadcast event in that VI, and then it doesn't exit that until it gets it.
Yeah, that would be that would be one way of doing it. But the problem is you're still blocking that module, like that module will still block for these 4 seconds. It will not be able to get other stuff. So it still would be blocking. So if you wanted to not block, I would do a helper loop. But just so everybody understands what you're saying is fine terminal. So what you would be doing is putting event structure here.
Ours is more for hardware wise, because what we're doing is we'll tell the hardware to do something, but we have to be able to like kill it immediately if something's happening. That's
okay. So, all right. If that's the use case, I have a better approach to that. And I presented that on one of the logs. So let me just show you that, and then I'm going to show you another use case for DQMH.
Because we want it to do that, but we want to wait for the response, but we also want to be able to kill it from somewhere else.
Yeah, I'm going to show you. There's a better way of doing that. DQMH. There's one that has all the tips. Did I click on it? Yeah. Tips. Other entries. Tips and tricks. Okay, there is a tip here for doing a state machine waiting a module. Okay, yeah. So let me mute it. But what we're doing here is we're creating a calibrate function, right? A request, and you see it's doing all the same stuff that we were doing before. And I am just doing what we just did. But now on the calibrate on the request, we're putting a while loop there for the calibration state machine. And we have our start and our different steps and our done. And then what I'm going to do is that state machine, I'm putting it into a sub VI. Now, what I want you to see here is that, let me pause. What we're doing here is we are registering for the events. Pause. All right, we're registering for the events, and then we in the timeout case, that's where we do the whatever you would normally do on your state machine. But on the stop case or stop module, and we also have an abort, we will stop this loop. I like this one better than what you were saying, Becky, because you can still kill it and you could still have a response at the end of this thing.
Yeah, I think we do something kind of similar to that, where we have our request in there, we're registering for it, but I think we just have a timeout. I don't know that we register for everything, but yeah, same idea.
Yeah, well, here's the timeout, and you could, in here, you could put an unbundle and just make it clear that you're just registering for the stop and the abort. But there is, you could add something else here on the timeout to check for time elapse, and then that would be another way of aborting. So this is, I like, this is one of the things that I like about the DQMH module is the fact that all modules have a stop module. And if I do this thing about registering for that, where is my, if I register for the stop module, I can then say, okay, it doesn't matter who's sending the stop and where is that stop coming from. I'll make sure that when I get the stop, I can exit, right, the state machine and block it. So I'm trying to see if we get to that in here. So anyway, but that I would recommend doing something like that if you're not already doing that. But it sounds like you're already doing.
We're doing something similar. I didn't know if that was a common thing or if that's strange. If that's
No. It is actually, it's one of the advantages of using DQMH is that you can register for that abort anywhere. I don't think it's in here.
It might not
have it here. No, it's not here. Anyway, but that's you can go back and check this.
That answers. I had 2 other questions. I don't know if anyone else had questions.
I have a question. I mean, it's not related to what we're doing right now, but I was reading an article. I don't know. Can't remember who wrote it. So, Fab, do you see any advantage of enforcing the actor model for DQMH? Like, what would be the advantage or disadvantage of doing that? Because I have
You're
some.
talking about the tree communication.
Yeah.
So you can do it. This is something that we leave as the preference of whoever is doing their DQMH modules. Sam is a big proponent of you do the tree communication no matter where you're at. I don't feel so strong about it because there are certain things like error reported and status updated that I want to be able to have anyone on the application register for that.
Right.
And there are certain things that we are adding. Olivier Jordan is doing a really cool product. It's called Antidoc that generates documentation for your DQMH module, and it shows you all the requests and broadcasts where they're going and where all your requests are being called and where all your broadcasts are being handled. And for the next release of DQMH, we're going to have a thing where you're going to be able to right click on a broadcast and it will tell you all the event structures that are handling that. So the enforcing of the tree communication, the big advantage it has is that it improves in debugging because you know that messages can only be coming from one branch of the tree. What I don't like about it is you end up having a lot of relay communication. And if something breaks on that relay, now you're debugging and jumping between different modules. And one of the beauties about DQMH is I can isolate the DQMH module and really isolate it, like really bring it and run it on its own. An actor doesn't allow for that. It's like you have to be running everything in order to be able to do it. And Sam did his version of an API tester for Actor Framework. And when I saw the code that he needed to do, it's like, that's there is the example. In order to test a DQMH module, all you need is a while loop with an event structure.
Yeah, that's what I like from DQMH, because I have a lot of projects that do not use like DQMH or Actor Framework, but I was doing some experiments. Okay, customer is requesting this, or manufacturing floor is requesting this. So I started to use Actor Framework on something that was already made by a different developer that's not in our team, and I decided to just discard that and go through DQMH or using a different architecture because my root actor had all the communication had to go through that actor, whereas in DQMH I can have different modules and I do not have to follow a specific path, which I don't know if it's good or bad. That was my original question.
Yeah, I think it gives you flexibility. As one of the things that Actor Framework does, and Actor Framework is a really well thought architecture that protects you from yourself. The thing that I don't like is that the rules of engagement are not clear. Like it doesn't guide you through doing the right thing. You need to learn what the right thing is. Where what we are trying to do with DQMH is guide you to the next step is how are you going to test. The next step is now go fill in your code for your module. I feel like Actor Framework is missing a little bit of that. But what DQMH is missing is we don't protect you from yourself. You can easily get into situations where you're not going to get an error and you're going to be going around. How do you avoid that? Well, you avoid that by always running your DQMH module from the API tester, always running the API tester after you implemented a request. And I've seen when people hire me to help them coach them, there was this guy that he had implemented like 10 requests and he had not run the API tester not even once. And I was like, no, that's not how you do this. And so I showed him and he's like, well, but I just opened the file. If I run it, the file is going to stay open. And I'm like, and who cares? You're in the middle of development. What you want to do is create the file and then go to the browser and make sure that the file is there. Now that it's there and you tested it to the API tester, now let's do the function to close it. and it kind of make it more iterative. And I feel like that in itself, even if he doesn't go on using DQMH later, he just learned the code a little bit test,
Right.
instead of wire the entire thing and then find out that you messed up the very initial step, right?
Yeah, I agree.
So I had other demos. I think the other question you had, Becky, was about palettes. Or what was it? Oh, you're muted.
I'm muted and talking to myself. If you go on disk, can you go on disk to the library?
Oh yeah, it's flat.
It's very flat. So there's a reason why, and I understand, but what we're doing is we deploy a lot of stuff as a package. So we deploy modules as VI packages, and it's a big pain in the butt to create the palette when all I want to put on there is the public API.
Yeah.
Is there any thought about making any of those public API calls in their own folder so you can just pick the folder and then rearrange?
No, but you could do it. Yeah, again, a feature request. That would be something to put in the feature request.
And then I was just going to suggest to others, because Actor Framework has come up, we actually use DQMH kind of as Actor Framework, but we implement it as, like right now, Fab's showing where it says public API. We also have a private API, and then it messages itself to do stuff.
Well,
So
we do, and we do that too. But we explain that more on the best practices. If you need to send yourself something, make it as a private request. There's a feature request on the forums to allow you to script private requests. Yeah. So there's
it's not hard. You just make it private and put it in a private folder. It's not bad.
Yeah, but the problem is then when you go to the Delacor menu to remove events, they're not recognized as events if they're not on that folder.
Yep.
So that's why we want to change that. What else? Okay, another thing, and then Becky can tell you about this. You know, we're not using object-oriented programming a lot. We only use it on the queues. So a lot of people are like, so what happens, right? Like, for example, you just went from version 4 to version 5. What's going to happen to all my code? We give you a validation tool. So we script everything to fix your code and bring it up to the latest version. So maybe people are interested, I can show that. I wanted to show because Dan was saying, you know, some people tell you about why would I use DQMH for? And let me see, where did I have that? I thought I already had it. Demos, there we go. Another use for DQMH that we don't talk about enough is changing user interfaces. And this is an example that came when I was teaching a class. The guy had, the application had like 3 different tree controls, a tab control with graphs, and like you keep, you know, it was a beautiful user interface. But what happens when you have a tab control on your front panel? Anybody?
Adds a bunch of controls and it's just hard to manage.
Yeah, you have all of that information is also on the block diagram, and that makes it really hard to manage. Also, in the case of specifically of a tree control, you have a bunch of GUI management code that has nothing to do with your application, but that you have to do because you're managing tags and you're doing all sorts of crazy stuff in order to get the data. But what you care about is just, where did I click? That's all you want to know. You don't care about how the data is formatted. You just want to know, where did I click, right? Do you guys agree with me or not? Yeah. Steven, what do you think? Are you still there? Nope. Okay. So what we did here is we created a module that all it does is it has a tree control. And it's implemented using a lookup table. And if I look at my tester, which is, this is the other thing about having DQMH modules, if you ever have to support a project out there that is using DQMH and you're not sure how it's done, well, one is you install Antidoc and generate that documentation from Olivier's toolkit. But the other thing is you go find the testers. And hopefully the people kept them up to date, the developers that were working on the code, and you will be able to find your way around. So in this case, I can have my lookup table is there. I can change its front color. I can insert it into a sub-panel. I can initialize it and get all the data there. And I can click on it and see where is it that I click, and I get the information here. I can run a new instance, communicate just with that one. Let's make that one bluish, change from panel color, show module panel. So this is just making sure that I know how to work with this table. A little note here, I probably, if I were really doing this to share with someone else, I would probably simplify how the tree control items are initialized, because here it's a leaky abstraction. There's too much information about how the thing is implemented. I probably would just send, you know, the information and then have the code itself organize it. But this was a quick demo I put together for you guys. So if I go to the block diagram, what's happening is I initialize in the initialize and wait. I'm just taking all the control items and then I'm putting them in a lookup table that it's implemented with a variant. And then I send back the response. And then the insert into sub panel, I tell it where to insert it, it inserts it, and then change from panel color, I just change the from panel color. And the event handling loop has a case here where it's looking at where am I clicking. And when I click on something, then I go to the tree control value change, I go to the lookup table, figure out what is the value that I actually want, and that's what I broadcast. All right. But the nice thing is, for my calling code now, for my application can be anything. It doesn't have to be written as a DQMH. In this case, it's written as a state machine. I run at the beginning my two lookup tables. I have my first tree ID, my second tree ID. On my initialization, I initialize the panel. And the initialization panel, I just put the name, the version. I don't have any UI interlocks here. And then on the wait for event, just like I would register for on Indeed init, I just, once they have initialized, I insert them into a sub panel. And just like I would have inserted if I had the control there, I would have registered to the control click event. Now I just register for the broadcast event, and that tells me where I click. So this is just showing that I could be calling DQMH code without ever touching the DQMH code itself. I'm just using the VIs that were created for the DQMH. And then when I exit, I make sure I close them, right? Sorry, I have a little kitten. Did I tell you? She woke up. So.
Oh, she's so cute. What's her name?
Katrina. Katrina. 2 T's. My previous cat, his name was J-Fed because he had a little mouse toy, and that was Mosfet. Yes.
That is the cutest thing ever.
All right. So Stan, you had mentioned, you know, why would you use this? Does this answer a question of another area where you could use the DQMH module?
Yes, I just need to research it more. I don't know. I'm still debating whether to go off in this direction or just continue developing my own framework or architecture, whatever you want to call it. Me personally, it's very interesting. I just have to learn it, you know, and that's I guess that's my hurdle, you know. What I have, I already know, you know.
No, definitely, and there is a little bit of a learning curve, and I know, just because I've been on your place when I was learning Actor Framework, we get tempted to try to figure out and learn everything behind the scenes. And at the beginning, it has to be more of a leap of faith and trust that Delacor has already figured those things out, and just learn the vocabulary of the high level of just the request, the broadcast. And then once you're comfortable with that, then you can start going exploring how things are done. I mean, you know, if you invite me a virtual coffee, I can coach you a little bit on that. The book also has, I started on the section on the frameworks. I started from a high level user interaction. I just care about creating things. And then I really go deep into how both actor framework is implemented behind the scenes and how DQMH is implemented behind the scenes.
Yeah, I just need to do that work, you know, because that's what I need to do to evaluate. For me personally, I just, you know, I don't know, because a lot of things I'm doing is kind of the same stuff. It's just much simpler. It doesn't have all the development that this has, you know. And
Do you use queues or events to communicate between your modules?
I use events. I just put them in a. It's very, very simple. I just put them in a functional global variable.
We put them in a functional global variable too.
Yeah, and then I just broadcast it. What I don't have is like a good response. I've been kind of. It hasn't. When I first made it, I was like, I need to have some kind of like handshaking thing. But like over the years, I haven't really. Hasn't come up that much, so I haven't been putting a lot of effort into that. That's what kind of intrigues me about this.
Yeah, so go check it. We have, like I said, we have the synchronize, which is the request and wait for reply. We do use a functional global variable. When you add a new event, let's do the generate random number here too. Just this time, just a request.
Don't forget your standard.
Oh, thank you so much. Who's keeping me honest? There.
It's David.
Thank you, David. Yes, a standard. Okay. Ask module to generate random number, and then we're gonna put the same thing, that the mean and the max. Okay. So what's going on behind the scenes is we are, what are all the steps to create an event? You have to determine the data type, name the data type, create the event, register for the event, handle the event, unregister for event, destroy events, right? This is one of the reasons why a lot of people stayed away from user events for the longest time. 7 steps, where normally with queues is define data type, you don't even have to name it. You create your queue, you enqueue the queue, you destroy your queue, you're done, 4 steps. So what we're doing with the scripting is what was created for you. This VI was created for you. This VI is generating the request. In this VI, which is the functional global variable, we do it with a feedback node. You want to guess why we do it with a feedback node and not a regular looking functional global variable? Anybody wants to guess? It's a lot easier to script. That's also why we have an event structure there. It's a lot easier to find the tunnels, not event structure, a sequence structure there. It's for scripting, and that's why we have the notes about don't mess with things here. You know, they don't look great, but that's how we do it. So what did we do? We added to your functional global variable this type def that has the module ID, because we're dealing with a clonable, and the min and max. So the type def was created for you. The cluster was created for you. It was named for you. It was put into the generate event. It was wired into a cluster of events. It was saved in there. So if you right click here and say show control, you can see there the module, the min and max. So it created that for you. And that was the creation. So we have the naming was done for you. The creation of the event was done for you. Okay. Now, the next thing is the firing of the event was done for you. Now we need to see where is it that we're registering for the event. Well, this is a request. So the outside world is telling the module, would you please do something? Now it is a request, not a command. The module as an actor can totally ignore you and not do it, but you would hope that it will do it. So if I do Control-Shift-E, it takes me to where it's in the project, and I can now go to the main. And on the main, I have a register for events here on the left. The registration for events has that same type def that I showed you earlier, that has your control here with the min and max. Okay. And it is the module's responsibility to generate its references. This is the only, in the case of clones, only the first one. Oh, we have a dog. So those are the broadcast and then the request. So this is just calling the VI that we saw earlier, the functional global variable, and the module is the only one that creates its references. This was a little bit controversial when we did it, because other frameworks create the reference outside of the module and then give the references to the module. The reason for that is, like, Actor Framework stops by generating an error, basically destroys the queue is destroyed, the error is what stops the actor. I hate that. I don't like errors are errors, stop conditions are stop conditions. So we wanted to make it where the module is in complete control of its own references. Yes, you can end up with zombies, but at that point what you do is you launch your API tester and you're able to find the zombies and kill them that way. All right. So we have the creation, the naming, the generation, the registration, and now the handling. So here is the handling. That was also scripted for you. And the last thing that I'm missing is there's the on registration and the destroying. The destroying happens on your way out when it is self to destroy everything. Where is my destroy self? I say safe to destroy. Yes, 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 here. And it also added your generate random number there and destroyed it for you. All of that happened on those 2-3 minutes that you have to wait for the event to get generated. So that's the part where I think people don't use DQMH for the architecture, right? It's just a producer consumer. They use DQMH because of the scripting tools. And you can customize it to look more to what you're used to. So for example, let's say you want to create, let me go to the next module, the next demo. I think the next demo has it, use maps. I believe this one uses maps. But I don't have stuff installed. Never mind. Stop, cancel. I forgot to install so let me go back to where I was. All right, let's say you want to create a DQMH module of these three. You want to share with others, and you want to change some things. So let's say you want that to be blue, and like I said, a typical one would be to change this into a class. I'm not going to do that because that would take time. But for now, assume that blue is a lot more changes that you did. Like, for example, you may have an extra while loop for a helper loop or something else that your architecture has. You can change those things. And like I said earlier, you can also create a child of your queue and create your own queue. So let's say this is the guy that you want to make into a template. So you go to tools. Let me make sure I'm picking the right one, explore, because I have these demos several places. So I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to go to tools, Delacor, DQMH, module, create module template. It's asking me to find where the module is. So it is there. What do you mean it's not a valid module?
Move something in the folders. It doesn't like that.
Yeah. Maybe because I didn't save it. I don't know. Let me start with a blank project. Blank project. Cancel. No. Okay. Save all. Yeah. Save as whatever. Okay. Tools. Delacor. DQMH module. Create DQMH template. Okay. All right, let's validate it. Let's see what I did wrong. Recent projects, demo tools, Delacor, DQMH module, validate DQMH module. Oh, I had that. Okay, so I had something was created as non-reentrant. So I can tell it, and it tells me here is the 3 items to lookup table. So I can tell it, okay, fix that issue. Okay, rescan current module, make sure that it's still validated. Okay, do you want to scan another one? No, save all, let's try again. DQMH module, create DQMH module template. I don't know why it's saying that. I may have also a debug version here of something else. So let me just add a new one. Let's do add new DQMH module. By the way, I have like a bunch of, look, I have already here a tree using a lookup table. So I'm just gonna do a singleton. Okay, and we'll do the same thing of changing the color. And if it doesn't let me do it from this way, I owe you a demo. This is why I record my demos, by the way, when I do presentations, because I hate it when things don't work.
Engineering.
Ah, yeah. All right. Yes, I don't know. I'm in a messy situation right now. Let me reinstall DQMH, and then I can answer other questions while we work on that. Any other questions? Besides, it just, Becky can tell you that it normally works really well, right, Becky?
It does, yeah, no. I was gonna say, the one thing that's why we started using it really with the DQMH stuff was because of the scripting, because you can delete things, you can edit it, I guess is the key. You didn't really show that. You showed how much work it went to just script the creating, but you can do, it does the same for editing and removing.
For renaming too, yeah.
Yeah, which is nice, because I don't name things nicely the first time.
And documentation and all the videos you have recorded, Fab, those are great.
Yeah, especially for ramping people up. Like we have internal frameworks and stuff, but then it's on us to teach them. And I'm like, here, go watch this, this, and this. And then I just put in there, beyond the Delacor ones, you mentioned it earlier, but the Tom videos.
Tom one is really good. Yeah, Tom's videos are really good.
Sometimes I have trouble understanding his British accent, but yeah, most of the time I get it.
Yeah. Okay, did I do uninstall? Uninstall?
So I had a question. How well does, or rather, launching asynchronous actors on RT is got some issues, or at least it's got some debugging troubles and problems. Does DQMH have anything to help alleviate some of the issues of running asynchronous loops that are launched on RT?
George Hampel, he's one of the DQMH trusted advisors, has created his own framework on top of DQMH that communicates with real time and launches modules with real time. And the only thing we used to have that got fixed with this 5.0 release was that if you were using Linux systems with UI enabled, the VI server doesn't work. The run VI and then replace by name, control value set and control value get of VI server does not work if you're using real time with UI enabled on Linux. Once we changed to no longer using VI server and using the star asynchronous call, with 5.0, it works well on real time. So you could give it a test drive, Huba, but if you're going to give it a test drive, make sure that it is 5.0. The latest version.
Okay.
And if you run into any issues, let me know, or if you can get a hold of Jorg. Jorg knows a lot more, has a lot more experience on real time. I have done 1 or 2 projects. I didn't encounter any issues, but they were also not super complicated projects. So.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. One of the reasons that we went to non-asynchronous actor launching being an option was so that you could, you know, open the front panel of a running VI on RT, because
Mhm.
there, you know, there's no front panels, there's no, there's no front panels on asynchronous starting VIs, so you can't really go to like a block diagram and probe around and see things.
Yes.
So
You can, if you want to probe the DQMH modules on real time while you're running in development mode, you do have to change the way that the clones are defined. I don't remember if they are share clonable or the other option.
pre-allocate.
Yeah, I think if you change it to pre-allocate, the show block diagram function does work.
Okay.
So, yeah. Any other questions? I'm going to try again. It's going to take a little bit to compile. But yeah, there's a lot of customization you can do, Dan. So if you like some of the stuff that you're seeing, you could make it look more like your architecture and still using all the scripting.
Yeah, the scripting's interesting.
Yeah.
It's just a learning. I guess it's just a learning curve that I need. I know it's going to take. I just know it's going to take time to learn it and then just to digest it. You know, it's just going to take time, and then it's just figuring out. From my standpoint, is that investment worth it? You know.
So, I mean, Luis, I don't know, how long does it take to onboard people? Because I'm not the best person to talk about that.
So we're a very small team, and
Mhm.
it's only me and two other guys, but both of them really picked the tools very, very quick.
Mm.
I would say probably a couple of days at the most.
Wow.
And then one thing is that I took the batch, and that helped me to reaffirm the stuff that I learned. I mean, it's like a self-test for yourself. But it's
Like
fast.
I said, an open book test, yeah.
Yeah, compared to Actor Framework, where I had that goal for myself, and I'm still learning it.
Do you have the book, the LabVIEW Graphical Programming?
Yes, I do have it.
Okay. And did you find the companion code?
The companion code?
Yeah, there is a GitHub repo, LGP5. Let me find it.
No, I didn't go through that section yet.
So GitHub there. I'll put it on the chat if I can find the chat. There is a chat. So I have some code there. If you get to the, I keep sending it to Brian. Huba, I don't mean to send you all these messages. It keeps going from everyone to just Huba. All right, there. So the way I did it is as we were creating the examples, we were committing. So once you clone the repo, you should be able to check out the different steps and be able to follow as the examples are going on the book as how they were created in real time. So I think that's going to help you more than just reading the book.
Cool.
And we have an errata there, and also Stefan Lemons helped me create a document with all the links, because there's a lot of links in the book, so you can just click from there. And what was the other thing? And we have issues, so if you find any issues with the code or with the book itself, you can log them there. So I mean, I recommend, if you are going to go through those sections on understanding more about the actor framework and DQMH, you probably want to get this code.
Okay.
It is a repository with a bunch of sub-repositories. So there's one for each one of the chapters. So you can go to the frameworks repository, the messaging repository.
Interesting. Okay.
If you get into any trouble, please send me an email, or like I said, you can file an issue there as
Sure.
well.
Sure.
All right,
Thanks.
let's see why it's not letting me create a project. All right, if it doesn't work from here, I'm gonna, no, I don't know what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna cry, that for sure. I am gonna cry. Okay, let me make sure that it does have the blue. Yeah. Okay, so this is the one we want. Tools, Delacor, DQMH, module. Create DQMH module template. Nope, that's not where it's at. Yeah, that one is none. Okay. Explore. Control C, tools, Delacor, DQMH module, create DQMH module template. Please work. Because at this time, I don't know why it's doing that. I think that's a race condition. All right. So what we want to call this is the description. A demo done for the Southeast Michigan LabVIEW user group for creating a template. And then you can choose here where you put it. So we're gonna put it on their Southeast Michigan log, and I'm gonna create. Okay, there's two options there. There's do you want to proceed? Because I already had it 3 using. Yeah, I was gonna say yes. Okay, so it tells me where the source is located and the metadata is located. It is putting it directly in LabVIEW data. And so if you were to package them, you would have to create a package that would install them there as well, right? But what that does is now I can go into a blank project, save, yes, whatever. No, let me do it here on demos. All right, so blank project. Now I can go to tools, Delacor, DQMH module, add new DQMH module. The ones that normally come with DQMH is singleton and clonable, but now I can use the 3 lookup table that we just created. I can give it whatever name I want to give it. So there we go. I should have called it like 5 legs or something, but I don't know enough. Is Becky still there? No, she's.
Becky had to go to another meeting.
Oh, okay.
Who has, so
All right.
very bummed about that, but yeah.
Huba, do you know what the name is? There's the Alamir restaurant, and then what's the name of the dessert place that is next door that Chris Ralph loves?
What place?
Alamir, and then next to in Dearborn, Michigan.
Mediterranean place with a really good bakery.
Ah, he never took you there, Huba? You're not important.
The Looney Baker?
No, he's not the Looney Baker.
Okay. No, I don't think he has taken me.
Okay. All right. I will ask him. I'm trying to remember and I'm drawing a blank.
Way to make me feel bad.
All right. All right. So there it is. We created a template. It is called Southeast Michigan. It has still that incomplete random number that we had. It has the blue color. So whatever customization that you had added, it will add it to yours. So you could have your ASD DQMH module template and then use that. And then the things that I like about this is, look, everything was renamed correctly, right? Test Southeast Michigan, even the broken arrow, because I haven't wired this thing here. Let me create.
Very interesting.
Okay, so if I run it and I run the new instance and I show the module panel, it's even called Southeast Michigan. So it didn't keep the LUT that the original module has. And the way we do that is some people complain about how many email BIs we have, but they're useful. So what we have is when you initialize your module, for example, we have this BI, that's the module name. When you create a module from template, we go into this block diagram and change whatever said here with the name of your DQMH module. So there's a lot of little things that we take care of that it will be really hard for me to cover them all, but these are the type of little stuff that we take care of for you. All right, so there is a lot. You don't have to buy into our way of programming. As long as you keep queues, events for the modules to communicate between each other, there's a lot of room for changing things. And if you run into a blocking place, let me know. Like, for example, I know that we were able, I don't know if I'm going to be able to add this one because I know we broke a little bit, but this is so crazy, like you shouldn't be going this crazy. But somebody asked, what if I do, and this is Paul, what if I do a module that doesn't even have a queue? And that's when I realized that we did not pick the right name for DQMH. It should have been event message, instead of queue-driven message, it should have been Delacor Event Message Handler, because it turns out that DQMH without events cannot exist, but DQMH without a queue can exist. So that's this module here. So this was someone contacting me and asking, can this be done? So this is really an extreme. But what we did is we moved all the initialization outside, and then we only have the event handling loop. There's no queues. Now, it used to be that everything worked. I think now we broke it for this version, but we will fix it again on the next version. It will not let me create a request because it's not going to find the stuff, but we can try. See, we broke that, but we'll fix it for the next one. But that's like if you want to do something like crazy and the tools don't let you, just reach out to me.
It's very,
right?
Yeah, I didn't realize it was that flexible. That's
Customizable. Yeah, I mean,
customizable. That's a better term.
yeah, the only thing is you give us credit because we gave you the scripting tools. So you put it somewhere in your documentation, but you can call it, your modules can be the ASD DQMH modules. The validation tools can help you out. There's also another thing that we have done is we have a custom license because the product is free. And this is something that I've always said since day one, that we were not going to charge for it. However, there's some people that say, okay, I am, I'm an alliance partner. I am going to be creating code for other customers. I don't want to give credit to Delacor, right? I don't want to have Delacor's name in it. So we can give you a custom license. Now, of course, that would cost money because we have to go through lawyers and make sure that we are protecting the IP and all that crazy stuff. But that is possible, and we have a couple customers that do that. But you don't really need that. You just put in the documentation. I'm using DQMH, and I'm using my own flavor of DQMH. Okay.
I did have a question that I always wondered over the years that I wanted to bring up, and this is an easier, I think, debate, but I'm just curious with all the people on here about the string versus
enumerator.
Yeah, for your state machines. I personally like enums because I can't spell. I love being able to pick, the state from the list. And I was just curious, like, what. The only reason I can think of using the string, it's customizable, but I was just like, I can just foresee me getting into so much trouble using that, I was just curious what.
I'm going to let others answer and then I'll answer.
In my case, I'm a huge fan of the JKI state machine. So I just love how much information you can parse from a string. And in my case, it's my go-to. If I have to build a simple state machine, I just pick the the state machine. That's the go for me.
So I get the whole typing issue that Dan mentioned with misspellings and you're going to the wrong case. But the rebuttal I have to that argument is usually that is not an error that you see all the time. It's usually something you'll see during development, and then you fix that spelling mistake, and then you don't see it again. It's not the kind of thing that, you know, is going to continually be an issue. You're not dynamically generating these strings. You know, you're saying, here's a string constant of what state I want to go to, which I usually copy and paste from the name itself. So that's usually why I'm okay with a string. It's because it's not like it's going to be an issue other than finding it that one time and then fixing it during development.
Yeah, I'm just really afraid. I just know
Well, you have to have this case. If you're going to be doing strings, you have to have the default case, and the default case has to handle your errors.
Yep.
Now, the JKST machine has some weird error that just says something like software exception, which is, it's something scary, and you're like, what the hell did I do? What we did instead is we have the module name, and then what this error gives you is the invalid message. We tell you what was the invalid message you sent, was received in the message handler loop for module X. And this came from a lovely customer of mine who would add spaces to his stages at the end or at the beginning to obfuscate his code. So sometimes it was one space, sometimes it was two spaces, and it was really hard to figure out what he wanted. So by putting the quotes, the quotation marks there, I was able to figure out exactly what was the message and where I messed up. But in general, if you are going to be doing strings, you need to use this. The reason we use strings, anybody else wants to jump in, by the way, before I go answering?
I'm for strings too, so I'm just with you guys.
I know I'm in the minority. I've always
Now,
I just
the
really
other,
like
you're not in the minority, Jen. It's I mean Jen. Dan. I read the name underneath. Dan, you're not in the minority. I like enumerators for state machines. A queued message handler is not a state machine, and that's like the people that get into trouble with queued message handlers is because they want to make them into state machines. The state machine, you cannot insert states in between. In a queued message handler, you can insert cases in between. And that's why you should not treat it as a state machine. If you need to do a series of steps when an event happens, like let's say this generate random number would actually require to do multiple things, you don't enqueue to yourself all those multiple things. You created a state machine in here with a sub BI and you take care of it in there. You make atomic operations. It's a message handler, it's not a state machine. So for state machines, I'm all for using enumerators. For queued message handlers, I like to use strings because what Luis was saying, you can parse a lot more information. There's a lot of other stuff you can do. So that's the main reason. The other reason is we're able to share the queue managing BIs because they're all the same type def. If you start having enumerators for each one of your message handlers, now you would have to have a queue manager BI for all your for each one of your modules instead of being able to just use a generic one. So that's the other reason. Now, let's say you do want to keep with enumerators. You could create a class for each one of your modules and then make them a child of these and do inside the translation between string to enumerator or whatever you would be doing. That is a level of customization that I have never tried, but I'm sure we could get there if you need to. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I was always wondering.
I confused you more.
No, I've always wondered, and I never really had the opportunity to ask that question with a bunch of people, you know. And I was, you know, it's, you know, I look at architectures over the years, and I'm just like, I wonder why, you know, NI teaches the enum you know, way, and I've always like, wow, this is great, you know.
No, and if you look, even on our sample project, this one doesn't have the application, does it? No. If you do any of the projects from Delacor, that the top level is a state machine, and it uses an enumerator because it's the state machine.
That's very, very interesting. Yeah, that's great. This is, yeah, cool.
The one thing when I teach classes, by the way, next time, you know, if we ever start traveling again, and if they ever teach the advanced architectures in LabVIEW class again, I used to go to Michigan to teach it. When I teach advanced architectures in LabVIEW, we spend a lot of time. I think, Tom, you were in my class, weren't you?
Yes.
Yeah, we spend a lot of time discussing well, it depends, and then we go into it depends of what, right? I don't think there is you should do A or you should do B. It's not always use enumerators, always use the strings. It's understand why you would use one or the other.
Yeah, and I've never had that conversation before, and I really appreciate having the opportunity to have it. So it's great. It's great.
Tom, do you want to add anything?
I guess I hadn't answered the question yet. One of the things with strings is that you can embed limited parameters into it, like say weight 1000 or something, and have one case that handles all the weights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what Luis was saying, right? You can add a lot of parsing information on the string itself.
JKI does that as well.
Yeah. There's I think it's Bella. I think his name is Bella. Bella did his own version of DQMH. He was one of the reasons why we added that customized thing that got me the create DQMH module event. This thing where we allow you to choose your Enqueue, and the reason he wanted it is his message handling loop is a JKI state machine. Like he uses it more as a JKI state machine. And the other reason why he changed it was because the one thing we do is we don't give you access to the timeout. And we explained here why we don't give you access to the timeout. We feel like we are an architecture, we're creating an architecture that doesn't do polling. It reacts to events. It reacts to things happening. So having a timeout turns it into a polling architecture. So that's why we made the decision early on. But then we realized that there were going to be people that were going to feel very strongly about it. So that's why we added the note. You can create a child and then have your own definition of your queue where you would have a timeout. And that's how you would do it. But we don't recommend it. But you can do it.
That's interesting.
We don't. Any other questions, guys? We already went far longer than I thought we were gonna go. So I hope you enjoyed it. I hope I didn't bore you to death.
I did. You know, I don't know if you know, we lost about 5 folks, but you know, we still have some folks on here. But you know, I enjoyed it. You know, I can't speak for everyone else, but you know, I don't know. That's what I like about the user groups. We can ask questions and.
So you'll have me over once COVID it's gone?
Absolutely, yeah. I'll take you to dinner. Well, you know, come on over. Show you the rest of the state.
Yeah, no, I mean, the whole idea was I finished the book, and my husband and I spent 12 years building an airplane. And he finally did the first flight in January of 2019. So the idea that I had in my head was we were going to be doing the book tour, flying on the airplane, and then that would have been tax deductible, right? the airplane gas, because it would have been a business trip. Yeah, it didn't work out. So. Yeah,
it'll work out someday. You know, we'll get back together hopefully someday. I don't know when. I did not anticipate it going this long, but.
Yeah.
One day.
So it may be 2021 or 2022. But
yeah, who knows? Who knows? It's just a crazy thing. But it's just great to be able to connect with, you know, other folks. You know, that's kind of why I don't know. That's kind of why I like the user groups. So. You know,
well, so if there's any other question that I didn't answer or that comes up afterwards when you start playing with it, just you know where to. I hope you know where to get a hold of me.
Absolutely.
Huba, did you like the presentation?
Oh yeah, very good. It really brought up some ideas of like, I didn't want to derail the conversation with, well, why did you do it this way? And why did you do it this way? When comparing it to something that I've done in-house, because this was your presentation. I didn't want to like, be like, you know, this is why I did it this way and have you justify that. So maybe we could have a dialogue offline sometime to kind of just compare notes a bit. Just one thing I thought is that if I ever give you any good feedback though, I kind of feel like you've moved down a path that you've thought through for your use cases really well. So if I ever came up with a good justification of, I did it this way, I think that you should try it this way, I feel like you're already going to have the, not rebuttal, but you're already going to have the justification, the clear reason that you're like, well, this is why we did it this way. Our users saw it like this. So I don't know how fruitful that conversation would be. But
no, I think it would be. I mean, there are things that have been added to DQMH from helping other people. Like I said, other people saying, okay, I really like how you're doing A, B, and C, but we're not moving to DQMH because of this. And then I can totally come back and be like, don't move to DQMH. You don't need to move to DQMH, right? You're like, what you have is perfect. Or I can tell you, oh, this is what we could do so you can benefit from the scripting tools and still use your architecture.
Yeah, it's just that primarily I see the difficulties in both this and NI's actor framework is primarily the RT applications for it. And that's a big part of what we do, and that's a big part of why we made a decision.
If you can check Hample software, and it's open source. I mean, obviously the DQMH code is all open. It's not password protected. The only thing that's password protected is the scripting tools. So his code is open source. And let me see. No, that's where does he have his? It was there on the front page. Open source. He has his architecture. What he did is he created his own queue that is a child of the DQMH queue. And it is able to discern if the message is going across the network to an RT system, or if it's staying on the desktop, or if it's going in between RT systems.
Yeah, and that we have that as well.
So that would be the HSE generic networking modules. He has been working on improving the documentation and stuff, but definitely if you want to try it with real time, George Hample is your guy, and this is the place to go try it. And that would also show you some of the stuff that he's done to customize DQMH. And he has a repository, so you can download the code. I think that this documentation should be, it's on a wiki. But you know, he has been working for the last year or so on improving the documentation. Still has room to go, but definitely he has used it on multiple real-time systems communicating among each other, and he's using DQMH.
Okay. And just for the record, ours does have scripting too for generating the methods and the actors.
Okay, then but we could totally have that. I would enjoy it. Wow.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anybody else? No?
Anybody else? Questions, comments, concerns?
I guess I do have one thing that I've noticed is if you're using a SVN and you have multiple DQMH modules in a single project, unless something's changed in the recent versions, you will get an error when you try to use the scripting tools. If one of them is or read-only, I should say.
The one error I am aware of is the create modules from template. You notice that I closed the project that I was working on that had the original code, because if you try to create a module from template, and the original module with the same name is on the project, that creates an error. That's going to get fixed on the next release. But the other stuff, I haven't seen that. What version of LabVIEW are you using, Tom?
2019.
And you're using the SVN plugin from, what's their name?
No, I'm using SVN itself separately, Tortoise SVN.
Oh, are you locking files? You're locking files.
Yes.
Okay, yeah. The error is because you're locking files. So what you need to do is not lock files. So if they are, what happens is the VIs need to be, the files need to be write enabled. They cannot be read only. If they're read only, that's why the tools are failing.
Yeah, and it's that case for all modules within a project, even if you're trying to script on just one.
Yeah, but it is because you're putting a lock on your files with SVN. So what you need to do is remove the lock. Or use Git or Mercurial. No, Mercurial, no, don't use Mercurial. I love Mercurial, but unfortunately
Mercurial
people are
is
moving
dying.
away. Yeah, it's dying. I was so sad when Bitbucket said they were not supporting. I was so sad and so mad that I went to GitLab. Away from Bitbucket. But
We have GitHub, yeah. But when I saw that ad, yeah, I was sad too because I was so, what's the word for that? Accustomed to on using
Mercurial.
Mercurial, yeah.
Yeah, and Mercurial is a lot nicer to developers than Git. But yeah, Tom. So yeah, remove the lock. That's what I would say. There's really not much more we can do there, because if the file is locked for editing, then we cannot script coding to it, right?
Right.
Anything else, guys and girls?
No, thank you, Fab. I have to jump to another meeting, but thanks.
Well, it was really nice seeing everybody, and I hope I can see you in person. And again, you know where to get a hold of me. So
thanks so much, Bob. Thanks, it was great.
All right. It was nice seeing everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
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 Where do I leave? Okay, I see. Stop share.
Oh.
Thank you so much,